me? Sorry.
Huh?
Venerable, we can start, Venerable.
Great. Namaste and hello, everyone. So, yeah, hope everyone is doing well during this very difficult time in the world. So we're now here. I think it's the 8th session of the Transforming a Suffering Life into Happiness. And so before we begin, let's just take a moment in the usual way to adjust our motivation. So please think that the purpose of my life is to benefit all sentient beings. And in order that I may be able to benefit sentient beings in the best way, I myself must first achieve the state of complete enlightenment. Then and only then will I have all the skills and qualities to guide sentient beings most effectively from the oceans of samsaric suffering to the state of enlightenment as well. And therefore, I'm going to engage in this lecture here today so I can learn about the various practices and methods that lead to enlightenment. Okay. So we had gotten through, so where we are in the text, we have gotten through the initial Lamrim glance meditation that was written by Doji Chang Losang Jinpa. And then Lama Zopa Rinpoche also compiled some stanzas. There's the stanza by Langri Tangpa. There's a stanza by Arya Shura. And then there was many stanzas by the great Shantideva. And then we did the meditation on and kind of section of the text is the blessing the speech. And at the beginning of blessing the speech, one so-called arises as the deity before one does that. But in my own kind of practice and my own sort of thought here, so His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he's emphasizing more and more that the main practices we need to do is the bodhicitta, developing bodhicitta and compassion, but also meditating on emptiness. And so these stanzas that Rinpoche compiled, it talks a lot about bodhicitta and getting our motivation correctly. But it's also, since it's also important that we are able to reflect on a daily basis about the nature of ultimate reality or emptiness, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has been recommending various stanzas, mostly by Nagarjuna, actually all by Nagarjuna, for daily reflection on emptiness. And even, it might be by now, I don't know, 9 or 10 years ago, in Drepung Losaling, when he gave an initiation of Pelden Lamo. Normally when you take an initiation, you might get a commitment for daily practice, and oftentimes you'll be given a commitment of reciting a mantra or a mala of the mantra of the deity. But since about 10 years ago, His Holiness more and more has been giving as the commitment to meditate on bodhicitta and emptiness every day, which just shows the one, the skillful means of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and two, how important and essential these practices are. So although it is said through the practice of the Vajrayana, one can achieve enlightenment in 3 years, 3 months, 3 days. Without bodhicitta, there is no chance of getting enlightenment. And without the correct view of emptiness, then even forget about enlightenment, one cannot even achieve the state of mere liberation from samsara. So putting one's focus on those practices then, is the sort of real emphasis where we should be placing, our energies. So I thought here, as we are talking about setting up a daily practice for our mornings, then I wanted to talk about these verses that His Holiness the Dalai Lama has been recommending now for years, and then we can also reflect on those after we reflected on the verses that we've covered thus far. Okay. All right. So I had sent these verses to Shanti. Can you put them up on the screen?
Venerable?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, Venerable.
Are you saying yes, like you're waiting for me to speak, or you're saying yes to the question I asked? Can you put the verses that I sent you up on the share screen mode?
Just doing that, Venerable.
Thank you. Nice. Okay. Maybe, can you make it a little bit bigger? Okay. In any case, so these first three we'll talk about first. And now, if you've been following Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teachings from Kopan, which I hope you have, you'll know and you'll recognize these three verses because now Lama Zopa Rinpoche has put them into the sort of daily dedication. Okay, but since these verses are around, developing the mind of cherishing others, we can use them both as a dedication as well as a motivation for our days. So, verse 383, may I always be an object of enjoyment for all sentient beings according to their wish and without interference, as are the earth, water, wind, herbs, and wild forests. So in the translation that Rinpoche is using, there it says, like the earth, water, fire, and wind, medicines, and wood in the forest, may always be enjoyed by all sentient beings as they like and without resistance. So here it is mirroring the same thought that we saw in the Shantideva's verses, right? So basically, like, being a, whatever sentient beings need for their happiness, for their enjoyment, kind of dedicating ourselves to be that source of enjoyment for them. And so normally they talk like, the earth will support all the beings on it, as well as be the ground which trees, crops, flowers, everything grows, and the earth then doesn't distinguish between whether it's a beautiful flower or a weed. It will support and sustain everything on it without sort of bias and judgment. And similarly, the water, fire, wind, you think of all the uses that humans and others can use with that. Herbs, of course, or we can think plants, medicines, and well, wild forests. Well, what that means is, yeah, basically, in the past, there would be sort of unowned land, and then the people at that time, thinking back 2,500 years ago, you could go into the wild forest and pick up wood that had fallen. If there are berries or something in the wild forest, everyone can kind of use that. So here the thought is that we think, may I be able to be used by sentient beings according to their wishes, for whatever they need. Okay, next verse. May I be as dear to sentient beings as their own life, and may they be even more dear to me. May all their ill deeds ripen on me, and may all my virtues ripen on them. So here again, you see, since we are now going to be so beneficial for sentient beings, fulfilling all their wishes, then, when we start to live our lives in that way, we will become very dear or very precious to sentient beings. They will, very much cherish us because we're being so good to them. But we're not doing it so that they cherish us or respect us, but rather, we think that may these sentient beings be even more dear to me. So holding them as even more precious than we consider ourselves. And then these next two lines actually is the other source quotation from the Indian treatises about the Tonglen meditation, which we talked about the other week. May all their ill deeds ripen on me, and all my virtues ripen on them. So those of you who are doing the Tonglen meditation, then some people, they accumulate a verse from the Lama Zopa. Okay. Next verse. As long as any sentient being anywhere has not been liberated, may I remain in the world for the sake of that being, although I have attained highest enlightenment. So here again, very similar to what Shantideva said in the Bodhisattva Trivatara. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay. So yeah, those I think are easy enough to understand because we talked about very similar sort of thoughts in relation to the Shantideva verses. Okay, so again, those three verses are again primarily on the mind of bodhicitta and compassion. So the next verses now are dealing with the wisdom side, the wisdom of emptiness. So actually, Shanti, could you just scroll down to the last verse? Yes, okay. So this verse here, which is from the Mula Madhyamika, chapter 18, verse number 5, was not in the original kind of commitment that His Holiness gave, but His Holiness does cite this verse a lot. Okay, so it's also good to understand. By exhausting karma and afflictive emotions, one is liberated. Karma and afflictive emotions come from false conceptions. Those come from elaboration of inherent existence. As for elaboration, it is ceased by emptiness. Okay, so we did touch on this a little bit when we went into the shared paths of the middle capable being, when we come to understand what samsara is and what are the causes of samsara, and therefore how to be liberated from samsara. So as we mentioned, that samsara is this process of uncontrolled rebirth due to our karma and afflictive emotions. Okay, so if we want to be free from samsara, we have to abandon the causes of samsara. So here, Nagarjuna is saying, by abandoning karma and afflictions, in other words, the causes of samsara, one is liberated. One is liberated from samsara. Okay, so now, how then do the karma and afflictive emotions come? Well, they come from false conceptions, and those come from the elaboration of inherent existence. As for elaboration, it is ceased by emptiness. So this gets into how we then identify the elaboration or the grasping to true existence or inherent existence as being the very root of samsara. Okay, so here, I think I quoted the other week from the Lamrim Chenmo, where okay, let's just take as an example, when we have the affliction of strong attachment arise, it's coming because we're viewing that object of attachment as being inherently or objectively attractive or beautiful from the side of the object, right? And because we see the beauty somehow inherently established from the side of the object, then we get attached, we want to possess, and so forth, okay? But how then are we clinging on to inherent beauty? We have, before that, as it were, this sort of notion of the object itself being inherently established. So since the object itself is, according to our false view, inherently established, then its characteristics, its properties are also inherently established in the object. Okay, so that's what is meant by elaboration. Means, it's a not, how do you say, it's not founded in reality, but it's just a sort of a mental elaboration or superimposition. You understand? So in other words, it's a wrong view. So since this concept, this notion of clinging or grasping onto inherent existence is a wrong view, it can be ceased, it can be abandoned through discovering the truth of reality, which is the emptiness, means emptiness of inherent existence. So when it says, as for elaboration, it is ceased by emptiness, that means it is ceased by the wisdom realizing emptiness, right? Because, you have a mind that clings on to, that grasps to inherent existence. So the discovery of the lack of inherent existence then will serve as the direct antidote to the clinging to inherent existence. You understand? Okay. So now you'll see footnote 5, right? So, yeah. So His Holiness Dalai Lama explains that according to Kunu Lama Tenzin Rinpoche, in the original Sanskrit, this line can be read as both ceased by emptiness, which refers to truth of the path. Remember, truth of the path is the wisdom directly realizing emptiness, and ceased in emptiness, which refers to the truth of cessation. Okay, His Holiness has said he often contemplates this verse before engaging in tantric meditations, and has asked his audience in his teachings to memorize it and use it in their daily practice on several occasions, including August 19, 2016. Okay. So this, it gets a bit technical. So I don't want to get into it too much, but this truth of cessation, right? Truth of cessation, it comes after we directly realize emptiness. Then we actually abandon some portion of the seeds of grasping to true existence. But what that truth of cessation actually is the emptiness in the mind stream of an Arya being, and that emptiness in the mind stream of the Arya being, since that Arya being has abandoned completely some portion of the grasping to true existence, then the emptiness in his or her mental continuum has also can be said to have abandoned those afflictions, and that emptiness itself then is what we posit as the truth of cessation. Okay, I think that's maybe all I want to say about it now. So we can go back up. Anyway, so that verse then it describes very succinctly, what samsara is and what cessation is, and also the need to realize emptiness, the purpose of realizing emptiness. Okay? All right, we can go back up. All right, yeah, right there. Okay. So now that we're excited, we see the purpose, the reason to meditate on emptiness. How then do we do it? So here you might recall there is this terminology about there's the selflessness of the person and the selflessness of phenomena. So normally they say, like for example in the Majjhimika Avatara says that all of the suffering and the faults arise from the view of the how do you say, jigsaw latawa, the perishing aggregates. Okay, all of the suffering and the all of the suffering and the afflictions arise from the view of the perishing aggregates. This arises, this observes the self. Therefore, yogis abandon the self. You got that? Okay. So normally, when one sets out to meditate on emptiness, then one will first try to ascertain the emptiness or the selflessness of the person. So view, right? Then when we talk about selflessness, okay, we're talking about then a certain type of self that doesn't exist. And that self is inherent existence. Okay. So then when they talk about selflessness of the person and selflessness of phenomena, the self in selflessness is the same, inherent existence. So when we talk about selflessness of person, it's the person's lack of inherent existence. And when we talk about selflessness of phenomena, it's the lack of inherent existence of phenomena other than the person. Do you understand? All right. Actually, I don't like not seeing you guys, but anyway. Okay. So here this is how we contemplate. Oh, well, I mean, you guys need to also see the verse. You didn't send this out to everyone beforehand, right? You guys don't have these verses, do you?
Well, I've shared it in the chat section.
Ale. Well then, okay. Yeah, so this is better. All right. Some of you have these memorized already. Okay, so here's how we then meditate on the selflessness of the person. Okay? A person is not earth, not water, not fire, not wind, not space, not consciousness, not all of them. What person is there other than these? Okay. Oh. Huh? Why am I seeing this word file again? Okay.
I could share it. So when you're talking, I can switch back to the regular participant screen.
Okay. Fine. All right. So, yeah. Here now, you'll see there's a few different reasonings that are used to establish the emptiness of the person, okay? And so, you know what? I kind of changed my mind. Let us go to the 22nd chapter of verse 1. Sorry, verse 1 of 22nd chapter of Arya Nagarjuna's Fundamental Wisdom.
Venerable, can I just take 1 minute of your time? I will have to close the Word document so that I can share it with everyone again.
Ale.
There were some participants who joined later, so they wouldn't have access.
Okay. All right. So verse 1, chapter 22. Neither the aggregates nor different from the aggregates. The aggregates are not in him, nor is he in the aggregates. The Tathagata does not possess the aggregates. What is the Tathagata? Okay, you with me? Some of you look very confused. Okay. All right. So this is the original verse from Nagarjuna. But what His Holiness says is you switch out, instead of the Tathagata, then you switch out and you say I, right? So, you know, the Tathagata does not possess the aggregates. What is the Tathagata? So you can say, you know, I do not possess the aggregates. What am I? You understand? Okay, go down. Yeah. You understand? Okay, so now first, if some of you are new, then maybe you're not familiar with this term, the aggregates. But yeah, basically, there are 5 aggregates: form aggregate, feeling aggregate, Zug, Soa, Dushe, discrimination aggregate, Duce, what is that? Compounded aggregate, how did they translate it? And the consciousness aggregate, compositional factors, okay. And the consciousness aggregate, okay. In any case, without getting into it too much, then these are basically the body and mind. All of the elements of our body and mind are included in the 5 aggregates, okay? So of course, the form aggregate is our body. And then we have in our mind, of course, there's the mental consciousness, which is the 5th aggregate, or the Namba Shepa. These are the main minds. And then some of the main minds, actually all of the main minds have the feeling and discrimination as what we call a kundronga. Oh man, how did they translate it? Like always accompanying mental factor. So with every one of our main minds, we have the feeling and the discrimination that comes along with it. And then we have the compositional factors. Is that what they translate it as? So this basically is all the minds that are not included in those other 3 aggregates. You understand? And then also the karmic imprints is included in that aggregate. So everything within our continuum of the person is included in those 5 aggregates. Okay. All right. So now the question comes: what is the relationship between the aggregates, the psychophysical sort of components of ourselves, and ourselves? Okay. So now what Nagarjuna is saying is, ourselves, we're not the aggregates, okay? Nor are we different from the aggregates. All right. So if some of you have studied the more traditional reasoning to establish emptiness that is found in the Lam Rim, there you'll see this reasoning called the reasoning of the four essentials. And there, the four essentials, okay, my power just went out. There, the four essentials are: one, the essential of identifying the object of negation, right? Two, ascertaining the pervasion is not inherently one with, and four, ascertaining that the self is not inherently different from the aggregates. Okay, so it is said that even, you know, it's called the four essentials because yes, there is this this reasoning that is put in here, the 22nd chapter, and in the Majjhimika Avatara, there's the analysis due to the seven, how do they call it? The seven way analysis, the Nambadun. But those different reasonings all come down to the four essentials. You understand? So identifying the object of negation, what that means is, you know, when we talk about selflessness, what is that self, right? So I mentioned this just a few minutes ago, that it is inherent existence, right? And what inherent existence means is that some object would be totally independent from any other phenomena for its existence. It can, if inherent existence exists, it doesn't. But if it did, it would imply that an object could, you know, sustain itself, could set itself up independently, you know, from its own side without depending on any other phenomena. Okay. So this first essential about identifying the object of negation is getting an idea, getting a sense of what inherent existence would imply. And more importantly, then as we relate it to ourselves, to see how we have this innate sense of ourselves that we go and remember provocative sort of situations when the strong sense of I will come up. And like, for example, when we are accused of something that we haven't done, when we get very afraid, then we sort of have a more clear sense of the I that comes up. Whereas normally it's a bit operating under the radar. Okay, so now then the second essential, identify or ascertaining the pervasion. Okay, pervasion means logical pervasion, right? You understand? So if the I were inherently existent, then it would be inherently one with the aggregates or inherently different from the aggregates. Okay, and there is no third choice. Okay, so basically what that means, right? This concept of oneness and difference. Okay, so oneness is you know, identical in every way. Okay, so we have, you know, like, for example, a mala, you know, like a crystal mala. Okay, only this crystal mala is one with this crystal mala. If we had another crystal mala, even if it had the same number of beads, same color string, it would be different from this crystal mala. Why? Because one would be in my left hand, one is in my right hand. They're different. You know, one could be mine, one could be yours. So oneness means identical in every way. Okay, so there's only this crystal mala is identical with this crystal mala. Okay, all right. So then difference basically then is we can either have difference in meaning, like a cup is different from the mala, right? They're different in meaning. Or if we say, this crystal rosary in my hand or this crystal mala in my hand, okay, they are referring to the same object, okay, but we're using sort of different language to describe. So it's what we then call, difference in sound or in terminology. Do you understand? Okay. So for something to be the same, it has to be the same in every way. Okay. Like the example, like Shakyamuni Buddha, then he was also known as, kasa, the sugar cane, like he had different epithets, right? But the point is, you might know, one epithet of the Buddha, but if you don't know the other, then you wouldn't identify those two as being the same. So therefore, the point is here, identity has to be identical in every single way. Okay, and if they are different in one way, they are different. All right. So now, then once we know about identity and difference, then if something were inherently the same, okay, so first we can say, if something is existent, just not qualifying inherently existent or anything, just talking about existence, then if something exists, it either has to be one with this mala or different from the mala, right? So the cup, it exists. Is it one with the mala or different from the mala? It's different from the mala, okay? But the so-called horn of a rabbit, right? Then we can't say that it's different from the horn of a the mala. It just doesn't exist, right? It's like, the horn of the rabbit, we can't say that it is, sharp or dull. It just doesn't exist. So similarly, with non-existent phenomena, it is not the same, nor is it different from an existent phenomena like the mala. You understand? Okay. So now, if that is true for existent phenomena, just kind of full stop, then inherently existent phenomena would follow the same sort of pattern. If something is inherently existent, it would be inherently one or inherently different from the mala, or in this 4-point analysis, it would be inherently one or inherently different from the aggregates. Okay, so that is ascertaining the pervasion. All right. Now, next, then ascertaining that the self is not inherently one with the aggregates, right? All right, so here, remember what inherent oneness would entail is identical in every way, right? So we have 5 aggregates. If the self, which is one, is inherently one with the aggregates, then as the self is one, the 5 aggregates would have to be one. It's not the case. Or if the aggregates were 5, there would be 5 selves, and that also is not the case. You understand? So that is, of course, when you get into it more, there are other reasoning, but that's kind of the main one, enough to give you some sense, right? All right. So then, inherent difference. Inherent difference would then imply, totally non-related with each other. Okay, and here, the reasoning that Chanakirti uses in the Madhyamika Avatara is to say that, okay, the self is not observed apart from the aggregates. therefore they're not inherently different. So what does that mean? Just like, my body is here, my aggregates are here in Maratika, Nepal, then you don't observe me in Kathmandu or Paris or wherever, right? You can only observe me where my aggregates are, right? But if they were, inherently different, they would be like, an ox and a chicken, right? Totally separate. You can have a place where there's an ox and no chicken. You can have a place where there's both. You can have, they're sort of unrelated, and therefore, they don't have to always be together, okay? Because they're different and logically distinct entities, okay? So here, the self and the aggregates aren't, distinct in that way. You can only observe the self where you observe the aggregates, and therefore they're not inherently different. They're not inherently separate. Okay, and therefore, when you go through this analysis, you then, since you've already ascertained the pervasion, that if the self, existed in the way it appeared, it would then have to be inherently one or inherently different from the aggregates. So then when you take each of those possibilities one by one and discover that they don't exist in that way, then one can come to discover that the self doesn't exist inherently. Okay? All right, I'm just giving a kind of overview about how these reasonings work. Okay? So now here, going back to the verse from Nagarjuna, which is an elaboration on that. Okay? So it starts off the same. Neither the aggregates nor different from the aggregates. Okay. Now, the aggregates are not in him, nor is he in the aggregates. Okay. So this is what they then refer to as being like, how do you say? Like the support and the supported. Okay. But it's easier to understand this as a with an analogy. So the aggregates are not in him, or you could say in me. So you could consider, like, for example, a bowl filled with yogurt. Okay. So you could think that, for example, I am like the bowl. Or I'm the container. You understand? Or you could think the aggregates are the bowl and myself, that's the yogurt. You understand? Yes? Okay. Now, but here, you see, that type of relationship would be just an instance of a relationship of inherent difference, right? Because you can have an empty bowl. It's like the chicken and the cow, right? You can have a bowl and yogurt. You can have a yogurt with no bowl. You could have a bowl with no yogurt. You could have them both together. You could have none. Okay. So those two, the bowl and the yogurt, are logically distinct, right? So the aggregates are not in him, nor is he in the aggregates, is just an elaboration of analyzing the difference, inherent difference. Okay. Yes. All right. So then the Tathagata does not possess the aggregates. Okay. So here we have again two kinds of possession, and so instead of talking about the Tathagata, we can just use ourselves, right? So come back to me. Okay, so remember my mala, right? So we could have there's me, the owner, right, and the mala. Okay, but what kind of relationship is this? We're independent. I can put the mala down. I can go to, the cave and leave my mala here, right? So these are logically distinct, right? Or we have, so that's one way of possession. It's a possession of a sort of, an object that is of a different substantial nature than the possessor, okay? Or we have, like me and my head, okay? So I possess my head, but although sometimes I don't act this way, yeah, like you can't envision me without my head. You can't say, although, we talk and, oh, he's acting like a headless chicken. You understand? So that type of possession, me and my head, that's a kind of same entity, right? And so the first one, me and my mala, that type of possession would be, inherent difference. But me and my head, if that would be like the same entity. And therefore, if something is the same, remember, if it's same in an inherent way, it has to be identical in every way. Right? So then I would just be my head. We couldn't talk about there being any sort of, difference between me and my head. Okay? You see? So then do you see now how the 4-point essential analysis, right? Then this is just an elaboration of that. Yes, you see that? Okay. All right, let's go back up to the not earth, not water. Okay, since we have a very kind of strong grasping to inherent existence, then sometimes, it's useful to use different reasonings, use different logic to try to establish emptiness, okay? So, but once you understand, the common one of the 4 essentials, and then the one we just talked about, a bit elaborated on that. So this one, keep going up, Shanti. A person is not earth, not water, not fire, not wind, not space, not consciousness, not all of them. What person is there other than these? Okay. So this is just another way of, describing. So these earth, water, fire, wind, space, consciousness, those are the so-called 6 elements, okay, the 6 constituents. And in another way, we can think that, these are the sort of, basis of the person, okay, where we have the consciousness, of course, and then the earth, water, fire, wind, and space are the other sort of elements of the sort of material world. So basically, this is saying that, the person, is not the 6 constituents that form the basis of the person. It's not them individually. It's not all of them together, but it's also not separate from them. Okay. So what does that then show? That the person is not inherently existent. Okay. So I wanted to, okay, Shanti, I want to see all of you again. I miss you. All right. Okay. So I wanted to maybe just give you a little bit you can contemplate. Okay. All right. So we've already gone through two reasonings that establish emptiness, and now we're here on our third. Okay. So let's think. This stanza here, it is showing a valid reasoning that establishes the emptiness of person, right? Okay. So how does that reasoning work? Okay. Remember, we were saying, like, for example, the four essentials, the person is not inherently existent because of not being inherently one with, nor inherently separate from the aggregates, right? Okay. So now what do we say? The person is not inherently existent because, then do we just say like this? Because the person is not earth, is not water, is not fire, is not wind, is not space, is not consciousness, is not all of them, and is not different from them? Or do we say because the person is not inherently existent, because the person is not inherently the earth, not inherently the water, not inherently fire, not inherently wind, not inherently space, not inherently consciousness, not inherently all of them, and not inherently other than them? Huh? Yes? That one, right? Okay, I see Alexander in the corner there. he's saying yes. All right, so now here's the question. Do we for any reasoning to work, right? Let's say, let's use, remember, a very simple reasoning, right? That sound is impermanent because of being a product. Okay, sound is impermanent because of being a product. Now for that, for us to realize that sound is impermanent based on that reasoning, what do we have to do? We have to realize that sound is a product, and whatever is a product is necessarily impermanent, right? Of course, we can get more technical and say that, yeah, we have to, recognize that, whatever is a product is necessarily impermanent, means there's nothing that is a product which is permanent. Okay, but anyway, in kind of shorthand, we need to realize those two things. Sound is a product, and whatever is a product is necessarily permanent. Impermanent. All right? Okay. In this stanza to be, the person is not inherently existent because not being inherently earth, not being inherently water, not inherently, let's just say, not inherently all of that, not inherently all of them, and not inherently different. Okay? Yes? Then do we realize, you can think, do you realize, for example, that you are not inherently the earth element? Right? Do you realize that you're not inherently water? Do you realize you're not inherently fire? Do you realize you're not inherently wind? Do you realize you're not inherently space? Do you realize you're not inherently consciousness? Do you realize that you're not inherently all six constituents? And do you realize that you're not inherently other than those six constituents? Pretty good. Okay. Now, do you realize that whatever is, not those six constituents individually, not inherently the six constituents, and not inherently the six constituents together, and not inherently different from the six constituents, right? If something is that it's necessarily not inherently existent. Huh? Alexander, I saw him. He was like this. Yeah. Okay. So maybe. I don't know. I don't have clairvoyance. Okay. But if that's the case, then why aren't you realizing that the person isn't inherently existent? Okay, that's something to think about. Hmm. I mean, even like, you know, we go back to the four essentials, right? When we read about it, it's like, oh yeah, oh, that makes sense. We realize that, you know, I am one, the aggregates are five, therefore I'm not inherently one with the aggregates. And yeah, I'm here, you know, my aggregates are here, and I'm also here. You can't make sense of me saying that, you know, my body is here and I'm in Goa. Okay, that makes sense. And, you know, all of these things, it's like, yeah, I get it, right? But what is now missing for us to get the actual realization? Hmm? So there's a kind of it's a little bit strange, huh? Because these verses are supposed to, you know, show us the proper reasoning that Nagarjuna said. You know, these are the reasonings to establish emptiness. And then when we read it with just a little bit of kind of commentary and reflection, it kind of makes sense to us, and we're like, okay, yes, you know. But the realization, I don't know if you heard you know, Rinpoche talking about this, but you know, he spoke about him having a conversation with Khandrola, where he was doing it in the context, there was a kind of a wrong view that was circulating, where maybe, I don't know, some other teachers these days seem to be teaching something like this, where you would just kind of start from the top of your head and like look for the eye. And from the top of the head, you go all the way down, you know, where's the eye, where's the eye? And you can't find the eye, right? And Rinpoche was saying he met a geshe that was like, that's how you meditate on emptiness. You understand? But that is like not that profound. And he went to then speak with Khandrola about it. And, you know, Khandrola was basically saying that, you see, if we were to do that, right, just go head to toe and not find the eye, we'd be like, okay, didn't find the eye. But what Khandrola was saying is, you know, this non-discovery of the eye, if it is a true sort of, you know, coming to touch emptiness, coming to touch our ignorance, it would be like such a huge loss. You know, we would feel this like the thing that, you know, we could have sworn, you know, has been with us for our whole lives. You know, we somehow lost. I had a little, okay, I didn't have any experience about emptiness, but I had an experience about kind of losing something that was very vivid. So, you know, back when I was, you know, living in New York, you know, it's very cold in the winter. And so, you know, you know, you bundle up, you wear, you know, a couple coats and you go outside. So I'd come back to my apartment, okay? And, you know, I opened the door with my key, right? You open the outside door, you open the inside door, okay? And, okay, a few minutes later, I couldn't find my keys, right? But I knew, like, I had my keys. I got into my apartment. You know, I know I have my keys. And so it was like, what? How could I not have my keys? You know, it's this kind of so like frantic and you know, like I'm losing my mind. I can't find my keys. I know I had them. You know what I mean? So if you had a experience like this in the past, you know, it seems to me that when you're getting close to touching the real kind of emptiness, you would have this like, oh, I could have sworn, you know, I was here just 5 minutes ago, you know. and then like to not find, and to that level of like shock, and it would really like rock your world, as it were, to use some American slang. You understand? So why am I bringing this up? Is although we're using these verses, it's not really rocking our world yet, right? We're like, okay, Nagarjuna, I agree with you. Yep. So, it's a little bit still kind of, surface level, right? So anyway, that shows we need to do a bit more reflection, right? Okay. All right. But in any case, these two verses here, they go in order, right? So remember, first we had the selflessness as a person. And so there are some texts, like also the King of Concentration Sutras, that says, just as you have ascertained the selflessness of the person, then, apply that same reasoning to other phenomena, okay? So here, verse 81, just as a person is not real due to being a composite of the 6 constituents, so each of the constituents also is not real due to being a composite. Okay? Understand? Just as a person is not real due to being a composite of the 6 constituents, so each of the constituents also is not real due to being a composite. All right. So, yeah. You guys understand what a composite is, right? Something that is composed of different entities, okay? So here, okay, this is just my sort of opinion. But you see, remember, okay, now when we talk about real, a person is not real, then it has this sense, the same as inherent existence, true existence, means in this case that a phenomena doesn't depend on anything else for its existence. Okay, it's a little bit confusing because in worldly sort of parlance we can talk about is this a real Rolex watch, or is this a real, I don't know, as opposed to counterfeit. Okay, so here we're not talking about that. Yeah, we're talking about something being inherently established, truly established, means not depending on any other phenomena. Okay, so here Nagarjuna is saying, okay, now why, if something is a composite, does it then imply that it's somehow not real? Huh? So this is, again, in order to understand this reasoning, we have to understand that point, okay? So here now is my sort of thoughts on the matter. Now, okay. Let me give you an example. Some of you might have heard before, but there's a group in India called the Project Prakash, I think it is, and it's an amazing amazing group. What they do, basically, there's a lot of children who are blind from birth, okay, in India, and there's this doctor, and they go and they find these children, and they perform the eye surgery and allow them to see for the first time. Amazing. But not only do they do that, but they then they kind of also run these sort of experiments and analyze the children before and after they're able to see, to learn about how the brain works, how the mind works, how cognition works, and so forth. Okay, so a few interesting things, but you know, so these kids, they would spend maybe the first 10, 12 years blind, and so you know, they learn how to talk, they know how to sort of get around in the world, and if you give them objects in their hands like balls or blocks that are square, they can identify, okay, this is a cube, this is a ball, or whatever, right? They can identify objects just through touch. But one experiment they did is then, you know, after the kids regained sight, they put out the ball and the block on the table, and they asked, okay, which is the block? And just by sight alone, they couldn't identify. They needed to touch. Okay, so that's one thing. But the other thing that was, you know, very, very interesting for me is they also had, you know, a picture of a cow, you know, a Jersey cow that has white and black spots, like Ben and Jerry's ice cream, right? White and black spots all over, okay? And so they had a picture of this cow on a grassy hill. And then they said, okay, how many objects are there? Okay, and like put a circle around each object. And so the kids, they would circle the black spot and then the white spot and then the black spot and the white spot, and then say, oh, there's 7 objects there. Do you understand? Right? Okay, so here's the point. This was the kind of significance that came to my mind. Even the, you know, what puts those things into a unified composite as a whole, but the mind, right? It's the mind that then is saying this is one object, right? And so we have to then, you know, learn how to associate the you know, the label and be able to identify, okay, this is one object, rather than just, you know, 7 blotches. Those of you, you know, are friends in India, right? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, when you write Devanagari script, when you write Hindi, then, you know, there's no spaces between words, right? Huh? Is that?
I don't know how it is traditionally, but there is space. That's how we are taught.
In fact, the line stops, and then the next word, there's a different line on top.
I think Namjong lost connection.
Hello? Okay, I'm back. All right. I saw D. She was seemed to disagree with me. Anyway, so what am I wrong? Yeah,
So,
I'm wrong.
I mean, how we are taught is that after every word, you leave a space. So
I see.
don't know how it is done of course, there is a history about, original prints may have been different, but that's how.
Right. Okay.
So you
Okay.
have.
It might be Sanskrit, but anyway, like when the Tibetans they write the Sanskrit mantras, it's all like it's together, right? Or even forget about.
Venerable lost the network connection again.
Okay, or ma or me. Okay, and ma or me can be a negation word. Okay, so impermanent. Okay, but so ma can either be a negation word or it can be mother, right? Or like a female particle, right? And me can either be a negation word or it can also mean human. Okay, so in general, takpa is permanent. Mi takpa is impermanent, right? But if you were trying to say that a person or a human is permanent, you would also say mi takpa, right? Mi being human, takpa being permanent. Okay, a person is not permanent, but anyway, you can make, like, grammatically speaking, it makes a logically, grammatically correct statement, right? So sometimes, you don't know just by looking at it where that syllable is going. Do you know what I mean? So that's done by the mind that attributes then that, okay, those two syllables or those letters then form one word and those form another. It's done by the mind. It's dependent on the mind. It's not, in and of itself. Sorry, that's maybe not a good example for this crowd, but I guess you get my point, right? Let's stick with a cow. Okay. So if that cow was sort of inherently, one object, right, not depending on anything else, then the boy getting the sight for the first time, on seeing that, would say that's one thing. But since they see, 7 different objects and they draw a circle around everything like that, they haven't learned how to impute all those 7 splotches and unify that into one object. Okay, so therefore, because of being a composite, it is not inherently because to label something as being a composite of its component parts depends on the mind doing that. Yes? Okay, let that sink in. So just as the person is not real due to being a composite of the 6 constituents, each of the constituents also is not real due to being a composite. All right. Next stanza. Because the phenomena of forms are only names, space 2 is only a name. Without elements, how could form exist? Therefore, name only does not exist. Okay, so this is, yeah. So here we have to understand, right? Space itself is defined as the absence of obstructive contact, means the absence of form, right? So, right here, there's space in my room. We say that's because there's, no obstructive contact there. Okay. So if form, is sort of, only name, right, means exists in name only, or exists being sort of merely imputed by the mind, right, then the absence of form, which is what space is, absence of form is space, then that too is only a name. So those two are, in some sense, mutually dependent. Space is dependent on form in the sense that how we define space, requires the concept of form, right? You with me? So then, without the elements, so here the elements, fire, earth, water, so forth, those are the sort of elements that compose form, right? So without the elements, how could form exist? They can't, right? Because form is composed of those elements, right? Therefore, name only does not exist. So this is a little bit tricky. So sometimes you could see it, you could think of it as being name only does not exist inherently. Okay. You with me? So basically what this is saying is again, that everything, form is dependent on its constituents, and then space, which is the absence of form, depends on form in this kind of conceptual matter. So therefore, everything, exists only in this way of, mutual interdependence. All right. Then chapter 24, verses 18 and 19, scroll down a little bit. Whatever is dependently arisen, that is explained to be emptiness, that being a dependent designation is itself the middle way. Because there is nothing whatsoever that is not dependently arisen, therefore there is nothing whatsoever that is not empty. So, yeah, this is, very critical. But yeah, remember, emptiness does not mean nothingness. It doesn't mean nihilism. When we talk about middle way, remember, we're talking about the middle way between the extremes of nihilism and eternalism. Okay. So since something that, the meaning of what it means to be empty, of inherent existence, if something is dependently arisen, okay, the next stanza, right? Because there is nothing whatsoever that is not dependently arisen, there's nothing whatsoever that is not empty, right? So since something is a dependent arising, it means it depends on another phenomena. We had discussed how inherent existence means not depending on any other phenomena for its existence. So those two are contradictory. Therefore, there is nothing whatsoever that is not empty. Okay. So things then being, a dependent designation, right? Designated or imputed by the mind, since that is what is meant by emptiness, then we're able to avoid the two extremes of nihilism and eternalism. So that, in short, is what this stanza means. So I recognize we're just about out of time. So yeah, I guess in practical terms, right, in that blessing the speech, actually the rest of the transforming a suffering life into happiness text is pretty easy to understand on your own. Okay. But after, you say, I go for refuge to the 3 jewels, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. You recite that 3 times, and then you purify into emptiness and arise as the deity. So that is the time when you would, meditate on emptiness. And then, think that, I think most of you have had initiation, but, you think that then your mind that is realizing emptiness then arises in the form of the deity that you're practicing. And then, you go through the rest of the text. Yeah, the explanation there is very simple, actually, very clear. And so, you just visualize the consonants, around the mantras on your tongue. You recite them, you visualize the purification, and you visualize that your speech has then been perfected. And then there's a few other mantras that you just recite as well, that then have the benefit of anyone who sees you or comes into contact with you, their negative karma can get purified. So that's it. Let's open up for questions. Yes.
Hello, Venerable. When you're doing this deity, arising as a deity and all, first you do a dissolution, right? And then do you do the analysis based on your own body, your physical, what you see as real body? Then you suddenly think of emptiness. Then you think everything is empty. Then you think your mind is realizing, the clear light mind is realizing emptiness. How do you actually, when do you do the analysis, like the 4 essentials and all? And on what do you do it? Do you do it on your, what we normally see as a body, or as a deity itself?
Okay. So, there's different ways you can do. I guess to be, more sort of, one simple way to do, I guess, is, you could just analyze on the basis of yourself, right? The ordinary, shanti. And then, you can analyze whether the shanti exists as the way she appears. And then you have this kind of, contrived realization, maybe, that, shanti does not exist in the way that she appears. And then you can think that, and that everything else appears to be inherently existent. And all of that actually doesn't exist at all. It's like a hallucination. It's like a dream. And then, your mind Avateshwar. But I'm being like, I'm taking a big kind of shortcut, because, you, for example, you could do at this point the so-called taking the 3 bodies in the path, right? But I'm not going to talk about that now. Okay. And then, another way you could do then also is, even after you've arisen as the deity, right? You could do that, what is the Tathagata analysis? So let's say you've arisen as Avalokiteshvara. You could do on the basis of that. Avalokiteshvara is not the aggregates, not separate from the aggregates, not possessed. Okay, I see Natalia's finger up. Yes.
Can you, or can we, identify Buddha nature as identical in every single way on everyone? So that's question one. And then question two, I think sometimes I get a little bit confused between the difference of emptiness and interconnectedness.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So first question, in the Gelugpa presentation, the Madhyamika presentation, what Buddha nature is the emptiness of the mind of a sentient being. Okay. So now when we talk about, for example, the emptiness of my mind versus the emptiness of your mind, right? What is being refuted, the object of negation, is the same, right? Both my mind and your mind are free of inherent existence. So in that sense, yeah, what is being negated is the same. But the emptiness of my mind, has as its basis my mind, whereas the emptiness of your mind has as its basis your mind, right? So in that sense, the my Buddha nature is here in Maritika, right? Now, yeah. So maybe that's good enough. Yes.
Okay.
For question one. Okay. Now, question two. Emptiness and dependent connectedness, right? Interconnectedness. So they say that the king of reasonings to establish emptiness is the reasoning of interconnectedness, or that something is a dependent arising. Right? So it's not identical, right? But everything that exists is a dependent origination. Everything that exists is empty of inherent existence, right? What does Nagarjuna say, right? There's nothing whatsoever that is not dependently arisen, therefore there's nothing whatsoever that is not empty. Okay, so those two, like you use it as the reasoning to establish that things are empty, but they're not the same. Yeah. Is that satisfactory? You see, because it's actually a huge topic.
Okay.
And I think in the course, right, that we did in Bodh Gaya, I spoke about this in some length, and I went through the as I was going through this 24th chapter, right? So yeah, to kind of rehash all those sort of arguments right now, it would take, yeah, like a long time. But yeah, does that help a little?
It does. I'll go back to my notes. Thank you.
Yeah. The point is, just like it's saying here, just to summarize, right? We can use the fact of dependent origination to establish emptiness, right? But something being, what it means to be empty is not the meaning of something to be dependent origination. right? Just like, for example, right, whatever is a product is impermanent, but when we say, okay, what's the meaning of something being impermanent, we don't say, oh, it means being a product, right? So it's a bit like that. Okay, next question.
To ask hello, can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
You said the aggregates themselves do not constitute the phenomena. Have I understood that correctly, that bit?
Not exactly. So we can say the aggregates are the, constitute a person, right? In that, yeah, it's kind of like this, right? So the aggregates, the 5 aggregates are what we call the basis of designation of the person, So the 5 aggregates, your 5 aggregates, okay, let's say like this, right? The US is composed of the 50, states. Okay, the United States of America has 50 states, right? So you can say in one sense that the 50 states is, or the US is comprised of 50 states. That's right. But is there this sense of inherent oneness with the 50 states and the US? No, they're not inherently the same. Because, and then, you use the same sort of reasoning. Inherent sameness means same in every way. And if you had 50 states, you would then have, 50 USAs, right? So what I was talking about, the 5 aggregates is, the basis of designation of the person, but is not the person and is not inherently one with the person. Hello.
No, but what does that mean? If they're not the person, then what do the 5 aggregates contribute?
Do you understand this? It's the basis of designation of the person.
Yeah, but you also gave the example of the mala, the 2 malas. And both the malas are designated as mala. So how would you reconcile that then?
Sorry, the
In
sound
terms
cut
of the
out.
aggregates.
The sound cut out. You were talking about my example of the mala, and then what?
I said that the aggregates are anyway not the mala. So anyway, the mala is different. So where's the comparison at all to start with?
I think I'm missing something. Okay, I'm gonna. You want to explain more, or am I gonna guess what you mean? Okay, look, the reasoning of the 4 essentials, right, is to establish that the person does not inherently exist. And the person doesn't inherently exist because, the reasoning goes, because the person is not inherently one with the aggregates, nor is inherently separate from the aggregates, okay? So what I was saying is, for something to be inherently one, it has to be identical in every way. For something to be inherently different, they have to be totally logically, distinct. Okay. So the mala is, logically distinct from me, right? As is evidenced by the fact that I can leave my mala here in the room and leave. And so we don't have to, always be together. There's no logical sort of relationship that entails where I am, my mala necessarily follows.
No, that is with the mala. But if you're comparing two malas, then anyway, they are different because the aggregates are different. And the aggregates don't make the mala, but the mala makes the aggregates. And therefore, they're anyway different. So where's the question of making a comparison then?
I'm sorry, what comparison?
That the two malas, we're comparing the two malas, they're anyway different. So where's the comparison to start with, in the sense, if the aggregates do not constitute the mala?
I'm sorry, I'm not getting the impact of the question.
Venerable, what I'm saying is that you said that the aggregates do not constitute the mala, and the mala doesn't constitute the aggregates. So when
I'm
you
not
say,
sure I use that terminology. If something inherently exists, okay, if something exists, it has to be either one with or separate from the aggregates. Now, in this case, I'm talking about my body and my mind, right? My 5 aggregates. If something exists, it's either one with my 5 aggregates or different from my 5 aggregates. So this mala, it exists, right? So since this mala exists, it either has to be identical with my 5 aggregates or different from my 5 aggregates. What is it? Is different from my 5 aggregates.
No, not you. When you said the comparison between the two malas, I'm talking about that. I'm not talking about you naturally.
Okay.
Different
Okay. So okay. So then we have, let's just say we have left hand mala and right hand mala. Okay. So if something exists, it has to be either one with or different from this mala. Okay. Right hand mala, let's just say it exists. Is it then, it exists, right? So it has to be either identical with left hand mala or different from left hand mala. Which is it? Is different from left hand mala because it's right hand mala. Okay. Now left hand mala, it exists, right? So left hand mala, since it exists, it either has to be one with left hand mala or different from left hand mala. Which one is it? It's one with left hand mala.
But if it is inherently imputed, then
no, it's not inherently imputed. Okay,
sorry?
but go ahead. Yeah, it's not inherently imputed.
Okay, imputed.
Okay, then
I don't understand where there is a comparison to start with.
We're not talking about imputed yet. We're on our way to establishing that things are imputed by the mind. Okay. So to really understand that something is merely imputed by the mind, we have to first reject or refute the opposite, that it's not imputed by the mind. Okay, so you're a couple steps ahead. I was building up this very step by step, so don't run ahead yet.
I don't know, at the end of it, I'm feeling quite schizoid. Because there are inherent contradictions in this argument.
Okay. I think maybe you need to maybe review the video afterwards and just kind of go through step by step and you know, consider sort of each step in the reasoning and not you know, get ahead of yourself.
Sorry, Getter?
Get ahead of yourself. You know, build it up very, you know, step by step. Okay, next question. All right. Well, that's it then. So I think this brings to an end this this series on transforming a suffering life into happiness. Yeah, what do you think? So anyway, yeah, we can, I guess, wrap up here. So we can dedicate. So please think in this way, that due to the merit that we've accumulated in our time here together, that all the sentient beings, vastness of space, can quickly be freed of all their suffering and attain the state of complete enlightenment as soon as possible. And also that this mind of bodhicitta, as well as this realization of emptiness, may arise in our minds and in the minds of all sentient beings. And those who already have these realizations, may those realizations just always increase more and more. So yeah, we also did for all the various problems facing the world, the problems due to COVID-19, the various other illnesses, the natural disasters, economic problems, political problems, war, all these undesirable things, may they instantly be pacified in the world. And through the sentient beings having bodhicitta and loving kindness in their mind streams, you know, may this then bring a new sort of era in the world of peace and prosperity. And yeah, everyone attain only the most conducive conditions for their Dharma practice so they can achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible. And yeah, we also dedicate for the long lives of the spiritual friends, particularly His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And I guess, yeah, also for Chukra Samling in particular, and more generally, all the centers and sort of, yeah, projects and groups that are trying to help sentient beings and preserve the Dharma. May they have the conducive conditions to do so. Okay. So I guess just in closing, just maybe one parting sort of advice or whatever, whatever you might call it. It's something that quite struck me. I do hope that all of you are following as much as you can Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teachings. But one thing that really stuck out in my mind, what he said recently, is, you know, we do these sort of practices in the morning and we do our, you know, meditation, but then we get up from our meditation cushion. And so Rinpoche was advising us to constantly be mindful then as we go out into the world and we encounter people, that we then sort of make the link of, you know, this person is one of the, you know, oh, may I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. We say that. But then when we meet someone, say, oh, this is one of those sentient beings I was talking about when I was doing my morning prayers. This is one of the sentient beings. I said, may I be like the earth, water, fire, and a wish-fulfilling jewel. I promised to the Buddhas I was going to be a wish-fulfilling jewel for this person. So then just sort of making our kind of daily life more connected with our more formal practices, I think is something very, very effective, like that. And then this can bring about the sort of, what I was talking about with your homework, is to bring up the joy in benefiting others, and not, being kind of irritated or, they're asking me to do so much for them, poor me, this kind of victim mentality we can get into, is to kind of have this this mindfulness. Actually, it's a type of mindfulness to remember again and again that I'm aspiring to be the sole source of happiness for all the sentient beings in the world, and now I'm given an opportunity. Now I'm confronted with this situation where I can actually put my aspirations into action, and then it can really benefit our minds. Okay, so that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Namjong La.
Okay, take care, everyone, and we'll see you sometime, somewhere, and somehow.
Namjong La, would it be possible to give a recap or a review session? Can you hear me?
Yes, my face was just blank, although I could hear you. It's like I was frozen with the internet connection, but it just was a blank.
What did she say?
Okay. Would it be? I mean, can we request you for a review session, a recap of what we studied in this series? Do you have any homeworks? Do you?
I mean, okay.
Any advices?
You can request.
Yes.
Yeah. But okay. I mean, you've videoed all these sessions, and so okay, let's consider. I mean, in terms of like the review or the summary, the point is, and I think I mentioned this maybe in the fourth session, those two verses, determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit for all sentient beings who are more precious than wish-fulfilling jewel, I shall hold them most dear at all times. And then the next one about may I be a wish-fulfilling jewel like this, right? That's the kind of essence of the bodhisattva mindset. Okay, I mean, before that there was the lamrim in 2 pages. So I'm not sure how much more abbreviated we can get to that, but I did mention the Aryadeva verse. At the beginning, abandon a non-virtue. In the middle, abandon the view of the self. At the end, abandon all wrong views. That can be a kind of review of that. And then at the end, maybe these 2 stanzas from Nagarjuna. Whatever is dependent origination, that is explained to be emptiness. That being a dependent designation is itself the middle way. Since there's no phenomena that is not a dependent origination, there's no phenomena that is not empty. So that's the if you wanted to boil it down to even I thought the whole Buddha Dharma in these like 12 pages, maybe. I mean, no, it's maybe 10 pages, but if you want it in 2 pages, then you can do that. If you want it in 1 stanza, then yeah. Enthused with by great compassion, you taught the holy Dharma to overcome all wrong views. To Gautama Buddha I prostrate. That's pretty much good, right? Because in that you have the compassion, you then have the overcoming all wrong views, and the purpose of Dharma is to overcome that, and then you can bring in the wisdom side as well. Ta-da! But look, I'll be very
Thank you, Namjong La. Thank you very
frank.
much.
I'll be sort of frank here. That's now your job. Do you understand? You have the wisdom arising from listening. Now you have to do the wisdom arising from contemplation, right? And you have to think then and draw the connections and think about this again and again. Don't be leaky pots, right? As we said at the very beginning. So, don't open up the file. And you should be able to then sort of go through those points in your mind, how the different topics of Lamrim fit together, how, what is meant by emptiness, and it's now kind of up to you. And one way of actually learning it is to do that, I mean, even as the Buddha himself said that, he's the one who shows the path, but it's up to you to, put it into practice. So, yeah, you understand? Maybe some homework for you. Some homework for you then, okay? You take this subject. This is like actually Richard Feynman, that he has this thing, the Feynman technique, So let's say you individually were going to, give a talk about emptiness to your niece who's never, studied Buddhism before, okay? What would you tell them about emptiness? Huh? Think about it. No, really. So that's the thing, right? Then to sort of force yourself to be able to explain something, to someone kind of untrained, it makes it more clear in your mind as well. So that's your homework. Okay? Or you can do this with anything. Imagine your niece. Hey, Auntie, what is Lamrim? And then, what do you say? Okay? All right.
Stages to the path of enlightenment.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So then what's enlightenment?
Sorry?
It's an idea. For the child, it is still an idea.
What's enlightenment?
So
Okay, anyway, I'm just giving you, look, I'm not saying we're doing this now. Our session is over. Okay. Yeah. Our session's over. I'm just giving you your next steps, your homework. Okay. So thank you very much. And, we'll see you again sometime, somehow. Okay. Take care. Be good to each other. And, yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you, Venerable.